Welcome to Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends, a podcast from Virtual Stage Lab.
Chers lovers of musicals, it is with deepest pride and greatest pleasure that we welcome you to our humble podcast. And now, we invite you to relax, pull up a chair, and ask yourself these three basic questions. Does it sing? Do I care? Why this show? Why now, mon frère? These three questions are the best when you decide, should I go there? Every show is a fight. It takes years to get it right. Is there conflict? Is there tension? Are the stakes too low to mention? First assess your milieu. Is there too much work to do? Will it bring the raison that it needs to bring? Nail down the atmospherics, then we'll craft some lyrics. Should it be? Do we care? Does it sing? Welcome back, listener, to part two of my interview with Dick Scanlan. Boy, are you're really in for a treat. You heard the beginning last week. And I wanted to split it up into two parts because we're going to get into the granular details of the writing, the creating, the backstories, and the actual craft of creating the song Forget About the Boy, which, as you know, is on my list of top 25 theater songs of the first 25 years of the 21st century, with the man who wrote the lyrics himself, Dick Scanlan. And I wanted to spend this moment, because I didn't get to do it in the previous episode, just giving you a little bit of background on my friend, Mr. Scanlan. He's created the musicals An Officer and a Gentleman, with book and direction for the North American tour, the Unsinkable Molly Brown book and new lyrics for the Transport Group, with Kathleen Marshall directing. That got a lot of awards and nominations and things. Drama Desk nomination for Best Book and Best Revival, probably chief among them. Renaissance, which was co-directed with Jack Cummings at the Transport Group. Off-Broadway Alliance Award for Best Musical. Everyday Rapture, book with Sherry Renee Scott, Tony and Drama Desk nominations. The Musical Review Extraordinary for ART in Cambridge with the director Diane Paulus, which my wife Brianna was in. And Thoroughly Modern Millie, which we're going to talk about a lot more today. With composer Janine Tesori, he wrote the book and lyrics. Won the Tony Award for Best Musical, no less. Didn't know this. Also with Ms. Tesori, he wrote the song The Girl in 14G for Kristen Chenoweth, and the theme song to Ms. Chenoweth's NBC sitcom Kristen, which I saw long before I even knew Dick. He served as script consultant to the legendary Berry Gordy in connection with Motown the Musical on Broadway. Well, that I did know. We worked on that together in the West End and on tour. His play Whirl Inside a Loop, written with Sherry Renee Scott, co-directed with Michael Mayer, and produced by Second Stage, was named one of the 10 best plays of the year by New York Magazine. I concur. In 2015, he directed Jake Gyllenhaal and Ellen Greene in Little Shop of Horrors at Encore's Off Center. He wrote and directed Sutton Foster and Kelly O'Hara at Carnegie Hall, starring Broadway Foster. He wrote and directed Sutton and Kelly at Carnegie Hall. That's Foster and O'Hara, am I right? Yes, I am. With an 82-piece orchestra as part of the 92Y Lyrics and Lyricist series. He wrote and directed Judy on TV and Cockeyed Optimist, where Hammerstein found his hope, in which he also starred. Saw that. Loved it. Bunch of other things. Some of which he will talk about at the end of his interview. He wrote a novel. He's been published in the New York Times, the New Yorker, Vanity Fair, the Village Voice, Playboy, and many other publications, etc., etc. Also, in 2011, Mr. Scanlan co-founded Arts Inside Out, a team of working artists, American and South African, that partners with Nkosi's Haven in Johannesburg, South Africa, using the arts as a tool to empower the mothers and children who live there with creativity, knowledge, and a strong sense of self-esteem. I actually joined Dick in Johannesburg at Nkosi's Haven after Motown opened in 2013. Spent that session there in June of that year. Incredible experience, and for another time. With that, here comes this for me is what this podcast is all about. It's a podcast for writers, nerds, and fans of musical theater. We're really going to get into the weeds here. Hope you enjoy part 2 of my interview with Dick Scanlan and our breakdown of Forget About the Boy from Thoroughly Modern Millie. And now we're going to move on to the really nerdy portion of the show, which you may love it and you may hate it, but it's all about what I love at this moment. And to my listener, my listener knows that I've compiled a list of 25, just because it's 2025, my 25 favorite music theater songs of this millennium so far. And I'm not doing them in order in terms of like chronology, and I'm not doing them in order in terms of like which one's my favorite, because that's very hard. But among those 25 songs is one that you wrote. So we're going to talk about it. And it is the opening, the Act 2 curtain raiser, or the curtain raiser of Act 2, Forget About the Boy from Thoroughly Modern Millie. So first of all, thank you for writing this song. Congratulations on writing this song. I think it is one of the great music theater songs of the first 25 years of this millennium. I'm gonna play little excerpts of it because I'm just gonna put it into the mic here, and I'm probably allowed to do that because this is all for educational purposes. But what I'd like to do is I'm just gonna drop the needle on it, start it, I'm gonna stop it, and then I'm gonna talk about whatever comes to mind about the craft of writing this particular piece. And we'll just get into it. Here's Sutton Foster, Forget About the Boy.
No canary in a cage for me. This canary's ready to fly free. Cut the cord. Was that a man I once adored? He's nothing but an albatross. No great loss, double crosser. Forget about the boy, pull the plug. Ain't he the one who pulled the rug? He's lower than an alley cat, dirty rat, and I fled her. Forget about the boy, forget about the boy, forget about the boy.
Okay, there's so much to unpack already. Okay, so first of all, I want to just talk about your use of metaphor. As a lyricist, I think it's something that is so underrated and so undervalued and so underused. You immediately, now of course, there's a line of dialogue that precedes this, which I assume you also wrote. I forget what
actually from the movie.
Is that from
Forget
the movie?
the boys, go on, get yourself a canary. That is from the movie. That's one of the few lines of dialogue from the movie left. Yeah, Richard Morris wrote it.
But what's so great about that is that, so you took this line from the movie and you used that line from the movie to launch you into this lyric. No canary in a cage for me. This canary's ready to fly free. So I understand the sort of the mission statement of the song, like right away. So I'm really like, okay, now I'm ready to understand what she's singing about. Now we're continuing immediately into metaphor. Cut the cord. And then, ain't this the man I once adored? He's nothing. Okay, I just want to go this far. Talk to me about the process of, so you're sitting down with Janine Tesori, right? You are thinking about, we want to raise the curtain on this moment. This is where she is with Jimmy. I'm going to assume that my listener basically has a basic understanding of what Thoroughly Modern Millie is, so I don't have to explain. It doesn't, because it doesn't really matter that much what the situation is. It's, Obviously, it's a girl singing about a boy who she's mad at and in love with.
A boy who she thinks has done her dirty.
Right, right. So, I know this is 25 years ago, but what's the conversation that leads to the hook, that leads to what the kind of music is going to be? And then we're already getting even the beginning, the way you and Janine have engineered the rhythmic pattern of the song. You must know from the beginning that what you want to do is incorporate the Jimmy Oh Jimmy song from the movie, and you want to do that in such a way that the audience will have no idea that that's what's coming. It's not set up in any way. It will be a complete delight and surprise when it happens. But where the hook lands is so essential to how you're going to fit it into Jimmy Oh Jimmy, and it all happens so seamlessly. So just talk me through some of what those conversations were just at the very beginning of this moment.
Sure. Look, I will. I mean, I have a stalker's memory, right? So I do. I remember very vividly. It was actually right. It was Labor Day weekend was when we wrote this show in 1998. I wrote this song. Forgive me. And I remember it very vividly. I remember exactly how it happened. It will. I don't know if it's going to be of interest for your purposes because this was a song that we didn't struggle with, and there are many songs in we did, including Gimme Gimme. Gimme Gimme was written word by word. I'd come in and say, I have one more word. She'd be like, okay, keep going, And then suddenly it existed, and we were like, oh, maybe it's... by the time we were so exhausted, we had no sense it was a good song. But with this one, we had done some readings. So this was in August of 98. We had done a reading in April of 98, a very small one, because and then we had done one in early August of 98. And we had an Act 2 opener called Picture Perfect. And it was Millie alone at a movie theater trying to forget about Jimmy by watching the movies and imagining herself as the heroine. So she's a series of movies. There was a Theda Bara movie, and there was a Clara Bow movie, and there was a kind of Perils of Pauline movie. And it had a very tender, plaintive refrain. And then it had a kind of a B section that was a patter section that should go back and forth, trying to forget this guy. And it was actually, I remember the plaintive refrain was beautifully written by Janine. It was gorgeous music, really just stunning, and really fun to set lyric to because it was such a nice piece of music. At any rate, after this reading we had in August, a friend of mine, Meg Simon, who's a great casting director, and I'm funny about comments from people, as you know, because very few people say much that helps you. You have a few people that come in that do, but people will sometimes say something and it's about another problem. Like the thing they're talking about is fine, but there is another problem. In this case, Meg, who'd come to the reading, who wasn't a huge musical theater person, said, I think this show is great. I think there's one problem. That top of Act 2 number, cut it. We want to get back to the story. We want to get back to the office. Why are we going to the movies? Who cares? And I kind of instantly recognized the wisdom in it. I think on a Thursday or a Friday of Labor Day weekend, and I don't remember what song we were working on. We were working on something else. Because remember, we weren't identifying this spot as a problem spot, and I brought it up a little bit like you were just saying about you have to be willing to speak your truth, because we were all very proud of Picture Perfect. It was going to be a huge production number, and there was going to be video design, and the actors were going to come out of the screen the way Diana Ross used to in her concerts. It was an elaborate concept for a major moment. And I said, can I bring something up that I don't think is going to be popular? I think we're heading the wrong way at the top of 2. We have this I have this strong feeling we're going to spend all of our time and money on a number that we're going to cut because it does nothing for story. It's just simply there to show off both our songwriting skills and then our production skills. And I think we should just curtain up on The Office. And she was like, well, what would be happening? I said, it's sort of right there. There'd be a little short scene. And then, you know, the line from the movie is forget the boys, Tillmount, get yourself a canary. And I said, she's right there to sing the song, you know, forget the boys. And then Janine said, yeah, forget about the boy. And so she literally said the hook. And my
Wow.
memory is that Janine almost immediately heard music to this. And because what I like in the room, because I remember that 3/4. One thing that's interesting about the song, the dee 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 ba-dum ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum ba-dum.
Yeah.
That's really the anchor of that song, is
Right.
that, you know, or is it a 4/1
It's an
4/1
F
da-da-da-da-da
and
dee
one
4/1?
one.
It's an and one thing that keeps it does this. It simultaneously underscores and moves forward. It highlights and pushes ahead. And
Yes.
I remember, my memory is that Janine had this idea almost immediately. She said there is a way to do this, so it builds up to a moment where she sings Jimmy underneath it. And she did. She crafted the melody, and I understood what she was saying. I could not hear when
Right.
Janine was playing, you know, the notes. I could not hear what she meant. I could not figure out what that would sound like. And she was like, "It can, I know it can work." And I don't remember then if we got the idea, who got the idea of the girls, you know, the other girls having their boys. But what I
Horace.
remember is that I walked out of with a cassette tape of a melody, and you know, with a hook. And that night, my mother had a heart event. She had a kind of
Oh,
heart attack. My mother was so 98. My mother would have been 81. And you know, so on the Saturday morning of Labor Day weekend, I was going down to DC where my mom was to, you know, eventually she had bypass, but you know, we didn't, I mean, she had made it, but she was clearly
right.
something needed to happen. And I booked a train on Amtrak and I called Janine. It was like 8:30 in the morning. I said, I'm taking an 11 o'clock train. By the time I get on that train, you will have a full set of lyric. And I sat down, and in about an hour and 10 minutes, I wrote these lyrics. It was just very clear to me. It's like, it wasn't even like writing. It was like, I mean, I'd listened to the tape over and over and over and over the night before. And so, and words had been popping up. I remember, you know, albatross and double crosser and things. And then, so, and I sent them to Janine. I guess email would have been how I did it, or maybe fax. In those days, I had a fax machine. And I remember I did not have a cell phone yet because I got my first cell phone 2 years later. But when I got down to Maryland, I called Janine from wherever I was. And she was like, I think the lyrics are great. I think they really, really work. I have a few little tweaks I want to suggest. And so when I got back to New York a week later or whatever it was, we rented a room at the Dramatists Guild that you can work in, which I think we only did it that one time. And that's where we built the arrangement. That's where Janine played for me how Jimmy, because also we needed two people. She'd be like,
Yes,
okay,
of course.
sing this melody.
Yes.
It's a slightly, the melody is slightly altered
Yes.
from the
Right.
actual melody.
Yes.
She was like, okay, sing these notes. And we actually crafted that arrangement together pretty much
Interesting.
exactly as it exists. I mean, there were little tweaks made along the way, but so that by the time we presented it for Michael Mayer, it was a pretty fleshed out version of the song. And I remember running into Kristen Chenoweth, who was going to do a reading of Millie, the next reading of Millie, which actually ended up being a year later in October of 99. I remember Janine and I were getting into an elevator somewhere and she was coming out of it. And we were like, we have written you a song
Hmm.
called Forget About the Boy. You're going to love it. And
Wow.
she was like, oh, that's great. So she was the first person to sing it. She sang it
Huh.
in the October of 99 reading
Do you have a
and
cassette of
sang it.
that somewhere?
Pardon me, I do
Do you-
have it somewhere. I have it. I think it's online. I think actually, because I only know that because B. Arthur played Mrs. Mears. And last year I found B. Arthur's big number from the show online. So if that's online, I would imagine Kristen singing Forget About the Boy must be. Somebody has an audio tape of it
Huh.
that they posted on YouTube. And I
Okay.
have the audio tape, you know, God knows where it is. But I have it somewhere. But yeah.
Is that a man I once adored? He's nothing but an albatross, no great loss, double cross.
way. But yeah, so that's really how the song came to being. And it was very it really arrived, pretty fully formed. And it was one of the only set of lyrics I ever wrote for Millie where Janine had, I mean, maybe I changed a word or two, but not many. It was basically, she was like the lyrics. I remember her saying something, not this, but it was along the lines of like, your mother should have a heart event more often because, wow. I mean, those lyrics are, I mean, not, I Janine would never be that insensitive.
Gallows humor.
But you know what I mean? She was like, these lyrics are exactly what the lyrics should be. They're exactly right. And of course, I felt that about her music, which I think is astonishing.
The music is astonishing.
Mhm.
It is so muscular and so felt. I mean, to say those words on those notes, the way she set them, musically, rhythmically, the harmonic language underneath them, it's honestly, it is music theater heaven and perfection. I want to go back to.
David, I want to add one thing. Yes, all of that, and of course, all the harmonics. That's all Janine. All the vocal arrangements. That's all Janine. All that crazy Wizard of Oz stuff that she does.
Yeah.
Forget about the boy.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But then Ralph Burns came along, the orchestrator, and he orchestrated in La Jolla. And Ralph added a whole other layer of fairy dust, right? Ralph was a genius, quite literally, a brilliant orchestrator who understood what the song was. And then Ralph ultimately passed when we were going to Broadway, and Doug Besterman fleshed it out for more instruments. So we had many people coming along, and then Rob Ashford created really exciting choreo for it. Really, really good,
Yeah, you had an incredible cast. Of course, you had Sutton, you had Ann Nathan, the brilliant Ann Nathan.
Yes.
I mean, just that's an indelible performance right there. And we're talking about this moment where you are starting the second act with a song that you love that is working in its own way, and to go from the ground zero of obliterating that moment entirely to creating the song that you will then perform on the Tony Awards is quite a journey. I want to go back to that moment because it's a wonderful moment in any writer's life when they take a song that is working in its nascent form to the director, and the director has a great response. What was the moment like when you sang "Forget About the Boy" to Michael Mayer for the first time?
My memory I have a less of a vivid memory of that. I have a vivid memory of singing "Gimme Gimme" for him because there was no reaction to it at all from anybody. Janine and I thought it was a turkey because no one said anything about the song when we sang it. We're like, oh, I guess we missed the boat on that one. But no, "Forget About the Boy." I do remember that Michael instantly. He adored it. He absolutely adored it. And I believe, if I'm not misremembering, the abstract of Cutting Picture Perfect, which was a number he was really excited to stage.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't know about this, and then he heard "Forget About the Boy." He was like, I was completely sold. I get it completely. Great. And I think for him, I don't think we talked him through. And I think at the moment when the stenogs begin to, add the names of their, their fellows, and then the moment with Miss Flannery with Barney Schreiber CPA, he really enjoyed it and saw the opportunity for the showstopper it could be, and it really was quite a showstopper, or is quite a showstopper, I guess I should say.
It is. All right, I want to talk just some technique stuff, because the melody that Janine then handed you went ba 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 ba, right? and there and what I love about this lyric, what I love about this technique in this song that you are very consistent with, is you're landing the rhyme on the penultimate syllable as opposed to taking the rhyme to the end of the line. So you're going "no great loss," or sorry, albatross, "no great loss," double crosser, as opposed to what I think a lot of lyricists would do, which I think not only the less interesting, but also the less experienced version, which would be albatross, no great loss, dub up, os, right? But you're not doing that. You're going crosser because the actual emphasis is going to come down on the penultimate syllable. Did you give that a lot of thought, or did that just come naturally?
It came rather naturally. I mean, most lyrics that I've written, I mean, there are exceptions to this, certainly, because Molly Brown, Meredith was dead, Meredith Wilson, so that was definitely music first because he wasn't here.
Yeah.
But most of the songs in Millie were lyric first, right? Or music and lyric kind of at the same time. I'd get a little ahead, then Jeanine would get a little ahead, but in many cases, it was a full lyrics that I would hand to Jeanine that she might really change in setting. But, so I was having to create lyric just based on a rhythm or a groove that I'd hear in my head. And then I would never share with her what that groove was because I'm much more interested in the groove because she's a composer and I'm not. But with this, it really, besides the idea of it was a music first song. And for me, when I have, I'm writing an opera for the Met, as you know, there's one piece, there's one aria. It's actually a duet that was music first, and it's my favorite piece in the opera. I think it's my best work, too, honestly, in the opera. And the same thing happened there, where if I have really good music by a really talented composer, and I have had times where I've tried this with people that aren't as good and it doesn't work, but if someone's really good, if I listen to it over and over again, words, it's almost like, a Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
It's like a word appears here, and then two words appear there.
Yes.
And then three, and then suddenly it's almost like I'm just identifying them.
Yeah.
They're there,
yeah.
and I'm simply unearthing them. And I was very pleased with that line of, nothing but an albatross, no great loss, double crosser. I just thought they were three really good lines. It's a triple internal rhyme, you know what I mean? It's, but I feel like it was a discovery. But I recognized the quality of, I was like, wow, what a great discovery.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful piece of gold I found, rather than look what I made up. I rarely, It was really, from the music, it really did.
Yeah, no. Obviously, if it's showy and calling attention to itself, look at me, I'm the writer, then it is an unsuccessful lyric. What makes this successful is that it is all contributory to the story, to the moment, to the character. Also happens to be a triple rhyme, and also happens to be crafted in such a way that it lands on the ear naturally and without any bumps of I'm having to work hard to figure it out. You're really not aware of the craft of it, which is what makes it work.
I believe one of the things that we did do in that DG room is I think the bridge I think I made it a little more formal, like in the moonlight.
Right.
Never think about him. You are so much better off without him. And Jeanine was like, can we make this punchier? Can we make this like real tough talk girlfriend stuff? And that's when we came up with Don't You Think About Him. I love the don't you. And I think I wrote sister and Jeanine wrote sister, so.
Well, but again, she's right. It's sort of the percussiveness of those words, as opposed to you have, sister is so powerful. And it contributes to like the muscularity.
Of course, and it was so easy to write because I wrote it for my college roommate, John Shearer, because at the time he had a series of questionable relationships, and we had a lot of late night phone calls with me saying, forget about the boy, literally. So that is how I wrote it. I just pretended I was talking to John on the phone, and he knows this. And I was like, I'm going to literally write a song of what I say to John 3 nights a week on the phone. Dump him. Get rid of him. He's no good, right? And that is how I wrote it. And it came out that is exactly how I talked to my friend. So, it was recently on an episode and Just Like That. And John, I was just like, my son's on TV.
Wait, they put this song on Just Like That?
They called the episode "Forget About the Boy" because one of the Kristen Davis The daughter
I
gets
had
cast.
I had to tap out of it just like that, Dick. It's the hate watch that turned into a hate. I just couldn't do it anymore.
I had never seen it, so I just watched that episode because, and really, I watched it mostly because I have a young friend who's also my business partner and Poptimus who likes the show. So he wanted to watch it with me. He thought it would be fun to watch the
Right.
episode where they're doing Forget About the Boy next to the guy who wrote it. I was like, sure. So we had a little
And so they
viewing
actually
party.
do the song in the episode?
They do
Oh,
about a minute of it, a high school production of it. Yeah.
now I've got to watch. All right,
Yeah.
fine. Then now I've learned something new today. All right, here's verse 2.
And in the moonlight,
Oh, this is the
don't
bridge.
you think about him? Sister, you're much better off without him. You
I want to give a little shout out to Sutton Foster's performance of how she leans into what you and Janine crafted very deliberately, and how she understands that instinctively, and then adds to it in a contributory way, not in a way that makes it about her, but about the piece.
Completely. It was a wildly thrilling performance. It really was.
I just love how she leans into what you guys have accomplished here, because it's just that is a writer's dream, to find an actor who just sort of instinctively understands what it is you've created and what makes it work and how to make it work better.
And I remember, David, I do remember being very pleased with the lyric, "You can blow the blues a kiss goodbye," because, of course, blowing the blues is an idea, and then we spin that idea,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's like I remember thinking it was, and I just took all the B's and I just liked it.
No, it's great, and we take for granted craft that is this solid, but even just, don't you think about him, sister? You're much better off without him. That is what I was referring to as a penultimate emphasis, but it's also known as the feminine rhyme, and the feminine rhymes are always so much more interesting than the masculine ones, because you don't quite see them coming in the same way. And when they're pulled off in the way you're just sort of naturally
Really true.
pulling them off.
No, and I find in contemporary musical theater, it's a lot of masculine rhymes,
Yeah.
and we just end up way ahead of them.
Yep.
We really, really do. And also, it also leads to kind of burn that rhyming dictionary feeling, like, oh my God, you
Yep.
can feel the lyricists really, they're gonna. It just, I agree with that. There's a, but it's a weird thing that just because you write words that go to a song, it doesn't really mean you're a lyricist.
It really doesn't. Oh my God.
And it doesn't. You can write words to a song and not be a lyricist.
But I want to just say that the fact that in the development of this piece of material, because you've gone to this imagery and these metaphors and this language that we've not heard before in musical theater, comedy songs, Albatross, Double Crosser, Dirty Rat and I Flatter, which I adore, that then you've earned the right to go into the bridge about the moonlight, and you can do a rhyme like, you can blow the blues a kiss goodbye and put the sun back in the sky. If the entire song was goodbye sky, high, dry, if it was then you couldn't get away with it anymore. But your ears actually, you have set us up to want this bit of respite in this moment where we're not working quite so hard all the time. It's the perfect balance of its complex imagery, its complex wording, it's very sophisticated prosody, but now just fucking enjoy this. And in the moonlight, don't you think about him, sister, you're much better off without him. You can blow the blues a kiss goodbye and put the sun back in the sky, and then we're back. For when he comes crawling, I'm not falling, shout hooray, and then we're back in the next verse. Musically, what's happening there is the transition between the bridge and the next verse is elided, so that you just continue to be propelled forward constantly into the song. It's really the genius of what both of you are doing here in the songwriting, where you can't quite hit the, it's not a clean end of 4 phrase, and now we're back in the bridge, or we're back in the verse. shout hooray, and that's the end of your bridge. Hallelujah. It's the same. You're in the same moment as
Right.
cut the cord. You're in the same pull the plug. Hallelujah. But it's all been transitioned effortlessly and seamlessly. To have accomplished that and then still be able later in the song to lay that framework down on top of a song that previously existed, I'm sorry. Get the fuck out of here with this. All right, I'm gonna keep playing. Sorry, I'm talking over you, but I'm enjoying
And put the
this.
sun back in the sky. For when he comes crawling, I'm not falling. Shout hooray and hallelujah. Now me and Mr. Wrong are through. I'll find myself another beau who I know is no rover.
It's thrilling. It's thrilling. Also, you have a responsibility now. You have to keep up this form you've set up, and you master that. And the words are exactly what you'd want them to be. I'll find myself another beau who I know is no rover. Also, you're in the vernacular of the character and the time and the setting of the story with the word rover, which is always a nice thing to remind the audience of, because it enhances the authenticity of the entire enterprise. And then we're back into this.
Forget about the boy. Forget about the boy. Forget about Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy. Horace. Danny. Milton. Percy. Barney Schreiber. CPS.
And now the Jimmy song, which we've heard. Millie brings us back with the hook in between. And then, of course, we have completely earned the dance break. It is not common to earn a dance break in the middle of a song with the skill that Forget About the Boy does. It's very, very rare. Where it erupts as all those moments should from the emotion that has been developed and built that could only now erupt in dance. I never cease to be moved and amazed by the skill with which this piece is constructed, and I'm not even through it yet. Before I go into the
Well, remember, don't forget, David, that Janine was before Millie a very accomplished dance arranger, right? Who had worked on many shows on Broadway, notably doing that thrilling arrangement of Brotherhood of Man from the Matthew Broderick '95 revival. That's a Janine arrangement.
Did not know that.
And that arrangement is literally thrilling. I mean, I almost fall down when I listen to it. Still, it's an incredible arrangement. And so she really brings to bear a real understanding where dance can and should happen. And of course, the other thing is this, I remember very vividly, is when she came aboard the show, which was about 5 months before we wrote this song. I remember the way that she spent time. I tell this story both with the song Thoroughly Modern Millie and the song Jimmy, playing them over and over and over and over. We were in a room together. And then one day I heard her playing like a cacophony. I said, "What is that?" She was playing Thoroughly Modern Millie backwards. She was starting at the end of the chart and playing the notes. She wanted to understand the architect, what these songs could or could not do. And so when she got this idea to put Jimmy here, she understood the song so profoundly, and she understood how it could be slightly altered to still sound like Jimmy, but fit right into the pocket of this melody that she had created. So, all of that experience and wisdom, and then, person hours that it takes, she had put in all that work. And it was right there when she had the inspiration to create this counterpoint. You know?
It's yeah, it's honestly mind blowing. I will tell you, I remember sitting in that theater for the first time when the song breaks into the stenographers standing up and saying Horace, Danny, Milton, and just the eruption in the room, just the delight and the joy and the laughter that happened, and then of course eclipsing with Ann Nathan's legendary Barney Schreiber CPA. It's really, it's kind of stunning to learn that it's stunning and not stunning to learn that just emerged at the beginnings of the creation of this moment. But I have this thing I say, which is, if everyone is working correctly, then you will generally come up with these moments where it does feel like you're just a vessel, and everything has just already been done for you. It's just for you to pick out and put on a page.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my Genius lyrics, and there's some hidden little gems in here which I didn't ever hear before. Is this accurate? Jimmy, oh Jimmy, Horace, Danny, Milton, Percy, Edgar, Timothy, Alfred, Vito Carbone, Benjamin Pratt
Mm-hmm.
III.
That's Kate Baldwin's in Vito. It is Benjamin Pratt III. I know that Vito Carbone, I think, is Kate Baldwin, I believe, is singing that. And then there's Teddy Morgan,
Really?
Teddy Morgan, Morgan, Teddy Morgan. There's the person who says Teddy Morgan's name over and over again.
Oh, it's Teddy
I don't know
Morgan.
if that's in Genius lyrics, but yeah.
Well, I mean, because in Most Happy Fella, when the postman comes in and he sings, Van Pelt and Herbie Green, and those are all people like the conductor and the orchestrator's wife. And is Vito Carbone Benjamin Pratt III or Teddy Morgan? Are they anyone?
Yes. So Alfred is my father, Alfred. And then Teddy Morgan was a guy that a very good friend of mine at the time had been, when she was younger, in her high school years, he was her real romantic obsession. And she just lived for Teddy Morgan. I think he went on, I mean, he's probably going to listen to this podcast. I think he's in the theater, and I want to say he worked at Milwaukee Rep as the associate artistic director. And I don't even know if he knows that this lyric is in the show, because of course you can't really hear it when they're
No.
all singing together. That was based on a friend of mine's romantic obsession. But the other are just Milton and Percy and Edgar, and there were just names that I thought sounded period to me. I wanted some like Danny and Timothy are now, anytime, but Percy, Edgar, Milton are definitely much more of the era.
They're funny. They have a wit to them.
There's a little bit of a suggestion of a story, because of course we find out later that Miss Flannery is clearly Irish American. Barney Schreiber is not Irish American. So there's this feeling of this cross-cultural romance between Barney and Peg. And in 1922, that would have been a very different story than it is now. And maybe that's why the relationship didn't work. Maybe Barney's mother was like, "You're not marrying that Shiksa." I remember
Irish
talking
Rose.
about this. That's right. There is the implication of narrative in that name. I mean, it could have easily been an Irish name, but I thought it was more interesting that it wasn't.
I love that. Let's keep going. Miss Earn's dance break. And again, your choreographer was
Rob Ashford.
Rob Ashford.
Rob Ashford. With a lot of help by Noah Lacey.
Here's Janine.
In the moonlight, don't you think about him? Sister, you're much better off without him. You can blow the blues and kiss goodbye and put the sun back in the sky. For when he comes crawling, I'm not falling. Hallelujah.
Okay. And in the midst of all of this, and this incredibly ornamental, delightful vocal arrangement, right before we do the final push into the final chorus, we find a moment to put in the quote, the biggest quote, musical quote in the entire show. It is the I have a dream. I had a dream of thoroughly modern Millie. Everything today is thoroughly modern. And Janine puts that in there. It is not shoehorned. It is absolutely necessary, essential, and is the last thing that pushes us through to this glorious finale of the number.
It key changes into that statement of everything. It's thrilling what she does.
It's thrilling. Let's listen to it again. I mean, come on. Come on, y'all. That is as good as it gets. It never fails to thrill me. It never fails to make me cry. The craft of it, the joy of it, it's perfection. So thank you for that, Dick.
And I've been listening to it that time. I'm very aware of the orchestration. There's like strings on it. Ding, ding, ding. They're like on half notes. Doug and Ralph aren't cluttering up the chart. They're leaving so much room for the vocal. And you know what I mean? And it's so smart what they're building underneath it. It's so satisfying, and it's just such good work.
It's everyone working at the top of their craft. And it's a thrill, and I'm just thank you so much for just bearing with me and nerding out on every beat of that song, because I think it's worthy of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the your appreciation of the song.
It's eternal. All right, so listen. So before I let you go, because I'm going to let you go, is there anything you want to say about, like, for me? This is a show. I feel like we haven't had it back in a while. Anything you want to say about that, Dick? I mean, you don't have to. I don't know if there's
about Millie.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything to talk about with
Look,
that or not.
Millie is, Janine and I have, over a period of time, had many conversations about Millie and what we love about it and what we think could be better about it. And then maybe a year and a half ago now, we came to some clarity about that together. And it was, and I think that it surprised us, some of the things we identified as wanting to look at. And that began a process of finding a director that we thought could really lead us through that process. And we think we found him. And we've, done a reading, and we'll do a workshop, and we'll see where this, again, our goal is to deliver Millie as people know and love it, but also a Millie that, we wrote it many years ago when we were younger, and there are things we think we can do better, and there are ways in which our view of the world has shifted, and we wanted to reflect that. So that's what I would say. But it's a show we remain very proud of, and I'm very grateful to have written it. It was, it was a really life-changing show for me, and it was, it was my idea, right? So I really pushed that boulder up the hill for some years, and it was very gratifying when it reached the top of the hill, because there were many points along the way where it wasn't clear that it would. And of course, it launched this superstar in Sutton, but it also launched many other people: Gavin Creel, the late great Gavin Creel, and Kudish, and Rob Ashford, and people in the ensemble like Kate Baldwin and Joanne Hunter. And it was this amazing group of people, astonishing group of people. And it was really Michael Mayer's first big show.
Yep.
Right. And he's gone on to do Spring Awakening and so many great things. So, and we're all still very good friends, right? I'm going off to work with Kudish in Aspen in 2 weeks, and Michael Mayer and I were best friends before the show. So, but we've remained really like brothers, and Janine and we're really like family to each other. And Michael Rafter, the original musical director. So, it was a great experience. I'm very, very proud of the show. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I came up with the idea, and they just thought the movie was so flawed But I would argue if you're out there and you're interested in adapting a movie, look for a flawed movie. Because to me, if you're looking at, for example, I'll talk about Tootsie here for a second, not to criticize the musical at all, but in that process of looking for a writer, I was one of the writers they spoke to, and I was just like, what can I possibly do that the brilliant screenwriter and director didn't do? I mean, to me, Tootsie is perfect. The movie. There is nothing else I need from Tootsie beyond this. It's a sublime piece of art. And to me, if you find something that has something interesting to you but has real flaws, then or not flaws. I don't know if that's the right word. In the case of Millie, there are flaws, but
Yep.
something that there's room for you to come in and say something, then it makes sense to work on it. And I felt that Millie, I just had a sense that Millie would provide me with that opportunity, and it sure did.
If nothing else, there is at least a collection of, at least a handful of tunes that are worth preserving, and and worth building something sturdy around. And and you and Janine found a way to do that.
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
it must have taken a great deal of sublimation, necessary amount of sublimation of your own egos to to follow, and for you and Janine to know that like the signature song is going to have been written by someone else, and that's going to be in the collective memory of the experience of watching the show. But ultimately the sublimation of your egos really pays off.
So I like to think that that's just who we are naturally as people, and I suppose as creators, because I don't think either of us struggled with that sublimation of ego.
Great.
And I think some other writers would.
Yep.
Just because everyone has different ego structures, right?
Yep.
But we're not, Janine is, wonderfully successful and truly gifted as she is. And Janine has an ego, as she should. We all have an ego. But Janine is not, she can hear tough criticism and she can dole tough criticism out. She is willing to hear it when someone says that it is not working for me. It doesn't work for me, and here's why it's not working. She'll agree or disagree, but she allows it to be said, and let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's happening.
And of course, the sublimation of ego is only possible if you are in service of the god of story, right? Because there's something you're working toward that's greater than yourself.
That is true. That is actually true. Yes, that is very true. And yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. To end where we began.
Yes, to end where we began. So I'm going to end it there. We've
All right.
We've gone longer than I thought we would, but I am also
sorry.
No, it's all wonderful stuff. Is there anything before I let you go that you want to talk about that you're doing or coming up? Anything you want to plug? Want to give you the opportunity? I know there's always with you. There's always a million things going on. I don't know which things you want to talk about, if any.
Well, the immediate things are doing a play with Cludish and Aspen called Mark Twain Shouldn't Say Such Things, and then we're launching the world premiere and then the Carnegie Hall performance of Everything I Know. Mandy Gonzalez sings Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is Mandy and a special guest who will be Diego Rodriguez in those two venues. Celebrating the career and the work of Lin-Manuel with 82 musicians on a symphony stage playing away. We've had so much fun creating it, and Lin and his team have been so wonderfully generous and supportive, and I think it's really fun. I think it's going to be a really great evening. And then, as you know, for many years I've been writing an opera for the Met called Falling Water, based on an idea that I had, so I had no one to blame when I was struggling with it. But this year that's taken an enormous step forward, and I'm creating that with the wonderful composer Josh Schmidt, who wrote The Adding Machine. And I'm confident that in the next year we'll be in a space where we can schedule a real workshop of the piece, which will allow us, the Met, to know if they want to take it into production. But we're also excited about where it's finally landed. It took a long time because, boy, is that, in a weird way, the craft of lyric writing stands in your way as an opera librettist. It is not, in some ways it serves you, understanding vowel sounds, understanding consonants, what can go, all of that stays the same. But in terms of, the way information is organized in musical theater, which is ultimately mathematical, and it is, and it can be more surprising with feminine rhymes as opposed to masculine, but audiences very quickly cotton onto the organization of a song and how they're going to receive those words. And really, in the classical world, that kind of organization is considered suffocating and frankly hacky, because the whole beauty of classical, serious contemporary music is that the composer can do whatever he or she wants to do in a moment to create through music and emotion. And language should not organize the song. The music itself organizes it.
Yeah.
And to talk about sublimation of ego, you're literally writing something so that you become absolutely unnecessary. Yeah. That is what an opera librettist does. Ultimately, you want people to not really notice what you've written at all, because the composer has used your words to tell the story through music.
Talk about sublimation of ego.
Yeah, it really, and I will say that wasn't the part I struggled with so much. It was just very hard to figure out, like, okay, everything I know about how to write words for music, forget that.
Yeah.
And tell this very complicated story with a set of skills you don't possess at all. You know what I mean? It was really very, very disorienting and wildly painful process. And I cannot believe when I read it now how proud I am of it, and that what was in my heart is on the page. I don't know if anyone will like it. I don't know. But I know that I'm saying the thing that many years ago I sat down to say.
Wonderful.
And it's a very, very personal story for me. It's not autobiographical at all, but it's probably the most personal piece I've ever written.
Wow.
It will just be ironic if it's done with 82 people on, a cast of 80 and all those musicians in the pit. But for me, it is the most revealing of my most wounded part of myself, would be this opera, I think.
Wow.
So we'll see where that goes,
Well, congratulations.
So that's the update.
Because if you feel like you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish creatively, then it is already a success, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Can't wait to see it. And you again. Thank you, Dick Scanlan, for being on the pod, and for being one of my
pleasure.
One of my dear friends and greatest mentors and favorite colleagues. Lots of love.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you. Bye.
Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends is a production of Virtual Stage Lab. Virtual Stage Lab was founded by Paul Gordon and David Goldsmith to create film captures of original musicals and plays to democratize how theater gets developed, seen, produced, and licensed for production. If you have a particular song, show, or story idea from a musical that you'd like to have David discuss, break down, and analyze whether or not it sings, please contact our Director of Marketing, Melody Munitz, at virtualstagelab@gmail.com. For more information and our catalog of original projects by David Goldsmith, Jane Eyre's Paul Gordon, Disney and Five Women at an Airport's John Cavanaugh, and others, go to www.virtualstagelab.com. Main title parody lyrics written and performed by David Goldsmith. End title music by Paul Gordon from the Gordon and Goldsmith musical My Improbable Sisters, starring Jenna Lee Rosen and Tony Award nominee Jasmine Amy Rogers, now available to stream for free on the Virtual Stage Lab page on YouTube. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to whichever platform you're listening on, especially the David Goldsmith Lyrics page on YouTube. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the community. This has been Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends. David
doesn't have a friend.
Oh, come on, Mom.